Hi.
That's a
Look
lot
at
more.
all of that. Got a lot of people already.
Yeah. Hi, welcome everybody.
Hi, everybody. Welcome.
Hello.
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 We're going to wait just a minute for everybody to sort of gather in, but while you're here, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I'm going to encourage all of you to please introduce yourself. So go find that chat button at the bottom and go over to the chat pod and fill in your name and tell us a little bit about why you're here. All right, can everybody see my screen okay?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I can see it.
All right. Okay. And we're in California, so you know, it's always manners in California to wait a couple of minutes for people to arrive. So all right. And Greg, I'm just going to do a double check. Are you still bringing people in, or do you think you've pretty well cleared the? Okay, you are. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Maybe one more minute, and then we'll get a start.
Okay.
Look at all the faces. All right.
I can't see anybody.
You've shared your screen, so we can't see the crowd.
Oh, do I share? Oh, share?
Is that right? Okay.
Share screen.
Yeah, with Zoom, you can move windows around, so you can see a little
Jim,
bit
what
more.
do we want to say about the reason we care about this? One sentence.
Whatever you want to say.
Oh, wait, I thought I muted myself. Sorry.
I'm gonna
Come on.
just let everybody know. We're gonna mute everyone during the presentation, and then we'll allow people to unmute themselves when we're done.
All right.
My,
Okay, why don't we go ahead and get started? Yeah.
oh, perfect.
Greg, are we ready to go?
Yeah, absolutely. Hang on, let me unmute you just for a moment here. I have to find you. Shoot, sorry about this, Christy. There we go. Unmute. Christy, are you muted still? Okay, go ahead.
I was just unmuted.
Yeah, I unmuted everyone because for some reason it didn't work. So anyway, we'll just go with how it is. Okay. Go ahead, Christy.
Christy's
So
showing
you
you
there?
I think she's still muted.
Yeah.
No, she's not.
All right, I think I've got it. There was a little button that I needed. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right, awesome. All right, welcome everybody. My name is Christy Hubbard. I'm a homeowner and a volunteer here at CEA, and I am here with an amazing panel of experts to talk about the MineWatcher timeline talk tonight. I'm really just kind of your host this evening, and we've got a lot of great stuff going on. In fact, you know, one of the very first things that I'm going to talk about is, first of all, thank you all for coming tonight, and especially thank you given that the debate is going on tonight. So the fact that you're here really tells us how much you care about your local community, and we really appreciate you being with us. So we're going to go through some talk tonight, but before I get in there, I just wanted to sort of set the context in the fact that we have a few folks presenting tonight. We're going to kind of try to split this half and half so that we're going to do some presentation, and then we're going to really spend a lot of time. Oh, can you guys still hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right, I lost my visual, but I'm going to go ahead and keep going. It seems to be reconnecting. So we are joined by a lot of great people tonight, because whenever you're talking about Community Environmental Advocates Foundation, the reality is this is very much a collaborative, cooperative effort. You know, we have people, you know, in addition to members of CEA like Ralph Silberstein, the president, you know, we have a number of people who will be talking with you tonight. Jonathan Keene from the Wolf Creek Community Alliance, Paul Schwartz, who's a former capital planner, Lori Oberholzer, who was a former environmental planner and a CEA board member. We've also got folks like Greg Thrush from Sierra Fund and Barbara Ravines from the Motherlode chapter of Sierra Club. So we've got a lot of people that are very much a part of this effort. And I just want to recognize that today, because this is definitely a community effort. So please let me know if the slide changes for you. Are you seeing my agenda slide?
I'm seeing I'm seeing you now.
Okay. All right. Let me reshare. All right.
I can see the.
Excellent. All right. Excellent. So here's what we're going to do tonight. The first sort of half of it is going to be a briefing. We're going to talk about some key issues and kind of do a little bit of a panel round robin. And then we're going to get into the heart of our conversation tonight, the timeline. We're going to spend a little bit of time on legal and what a critical component that is, and then sort of, and certainly talk about action and how you can help. But really, we're really trying to reserve a lot of time for questions and answers. And as a matter of fact, Greg, you know, I'd like to take a moment and let you talk about how we want to handle questions and answers this evening.
Sure. So what we're going to do is first do the presentations, and then we have a fairly large group. There's 37 of us right now. Probably we'll get a few more. And just in the interest of keeping it organized and allowing everybody to ask a question and make comments as they need, we're going to suggest that everybody who has a question or would like to speak, to put it in the, the questions go into the chat box, and then we'll explain later how we're going to use the raising hand feature. And we will, if you want to make a comment or a question, raise your hand and we'll acknowledge people in order and allow them to speak. So that's how we're going to do it this evening. We'll talk a little bit more.
Thank you, Greg.
Yeah,
thank you, Greg. Yeah, and initially what we're going to do is just to try to talk to the questions that you put in the chat pod, because what we're going to do is have all of our presenters sort of do a sequence, and please put your questions in while they're talking, and we'll address those questions, and then we're going to open it up for more, you know, verbal conversation. So hopefully we're all going to learn a lot tonight. All right. So let me just, I'm just going to pop this up for a moment and really just here's sort of the briefing. First, we're going to have Ralph Silberstein from CEA, our president, our fearless president, talk about the Mine Project overall. Then we're going to have Jonathan Keene talk about water. He's from Wolf Creek Community Alliance. Unfortunately, one of our fabulous members, Mike Shea, was going to talk about neighborhood tonight, and but he had a family health problem that he had to go deal with, so I'll be covering that. We're also then going to have Lori Oberholzer talk about the Centennial site. We're going to have Paul Schwartz talk about the timeline, and oh wait, no, Lori's talking about legal. I messed up, didn't I? Okay, let me get that straight, but I'll come back to it. Okay, so let me just start, and I'm just going to leave it right here. As a matter of fact, I'm just going to turn my slide off for a moment so we can focus on the faces. Okay, have I stopped sharing yet?
Not yet.
Not yet. All right, let me make sure that I do that. Okay. And isn't it fun? Zoom isn't giving me all my menus. Okay. Let me just stop right there and work that out. And I'm going to just leave this as is for a moment and ask Ralph. would you please kindly introduce yourself and tell us, I would really love to hear the overview about the project and the thoughts that you have about what's going on.
Yeah, sure. Welcome. I'm very pleased to be here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes.
So I'm Ralph Silberstein. Some of you may recognize me from Citizens Looking at Impacts of Mining, or CLAIM. That's the organization that fought the mine last time when M-Gold was trying to open this mine. CLAIM was a key force in stopping M-Gold in around 2011. And CLAIM later merged with the RQC to form CEA Foundation. I'm going to keep my comments very brief because a lot of you are already pretty much aware of the mine and are familiar with a lot of the history. What we do want to discuss is CEA Foundation's plans to take a look at the timeline for the approval process and take a look at some of the key issues. Before our plans, we have three main areas of focus. Number one is preparing for technical and legal challenges. It is critical that at each step of the way, we make sure that we have laid a foundation for challenging the project when the final environmental impact report or final EIR is published. And this involves thoroughly studying the project documents and identifying the impact, as well as identifying areas that are not adequately addressed. Then we will use this information in our comments that will be submitted during the comment period for the draft EIR. But researching the application documents is also critical for our second area of focus, which is really to inform and engage the public and form a strong opposition. I think to everyone here, I think it is obvious that this mine will have many impacts and is a bad idea. We just have to get that information out there and get everyone else in the county to realize that this is a bad idea. We need to build an opposition movement. So ultimately, we want to compel the Board of Supervisors to vote this project down. And for that, we need 3 no votes. So a third area we're looking at is the questionable past of Rise Gold's CEO, Ben Mossman. In his history, he has accumulated numerous fines and citations due to pollution and non-compliance and ending up in bankruptcy. And we don't want to see a repeat of that happening here, leaving us with an expensive mess. So regarding these 3 areas, due to the deadlines, our main focus to date has been on number 1. We spent a lot of energy researching the application documents to identify the impacts and try to produce some documents for the public and to produce our talking points. And we responded in great force to the notice of preparation, or the NOP. It was a great outpouring of support from the community as well. So to build a good legal foundation, we early on hired Shute, Mahaley, and Weinberger to represent us. This is a highly experienced law firm that we have used many times in the past. It is worth noting that the last time, what stopped the mine was that we identified so many major defects in the draft EIR that they had to go back and do it over. And then they ran out of money and were unable to get more funding. So maybe we can do that again. Finally, I want to say that the community response has been great and spontaneous, and that is you folks. Some of you have really carried the ball forward on this, and we want to work together, and we welcome your input. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Ralph. Really appreciate that. Some great points there. Next up, I'm going to introduce Jonathan Keene from the Wolf Creek Community Alliance. Now, Jonathan, can you just tell us a little bit about your role there and tell us a little bit about what's happening to water? Uh-oh. Greg, it looks like you'll have to unmute Jonathan.
Yeah, I'm trying to unmute him. And there we go.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Hi there. I'm Jonathan Keene. I'm with the Wolf Creek Community Alliance here in Grass Valley. Yeah, this is the second or third. I kind of lose track of the number of mines that we've been worried about here in Grass Valley. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about the impacts that the proposed project would have on Wolf Creek and some of the tributaries, the whole watershed really. So just to kind of clarify, there's actually, some of you may not know, there's actually two different sites that this project is proposed. One is on, they're about 2 miles apart. One of them is on Brunswick Road, and that's called the Brunswick site. The other one's closer to downtown Grass Valley. It's called the Centennial site. And both sites have creeks running through them. The main stem of Wolf Creek runs right through the Centennial site, which is close to downtown. The other site, which is out on Brunswick, has a tributary called South Fork of Wolf Creek, which flows through that site, right through the middle of it. That's really the more industrial site of they're both big industrial sites. But I like to think of these two surface plots, the two sites, as like the two tips of an iceberg, of a single iceberg, because the underground workings of the mine are like 70 to 70 miles of tunnels that go in a web underneath both sites, connecting them and spreading out far beyond them. And their potential mining would be in that entire area, the entire iceberg, as it were, spreading underneath both sites. The tunnels down there right now are full of water. They've been filling up ever since the 50s when they closed the Idaho Maryland mine, and so they're full of water. In addition to that picture of the iceberg, there's also, you could think of all the private wells, which are like straws sticking down into the aquifer down below, which bring water up for private residences. There's probably several hundred of them that we know of that are likely to be affected. So the first 6 months of this proposed mine, they need to pump all the water out of the tunnels. It's a lot of water that's down there. The plan is to be pumping water for 6 months, 24 hours a day, about over 3 million gallons a day of water that would be dumped into the little tributary. That's South Fork of Wolf Creek, which is at the Brunswick site. South Fork is a sweet little perennial creek. Most of the year, it's only 1 to 3 feet wide. You could step over it in many areas, but it runs all year round. The extra volume of this dewatering would bring that creek to a flood stage for 24 hours a day for at least the first 6 months. So of course that would impact the stability of its banks, the riparian flora and fauna that live there along the creek, etc. And after that initial dewatering, they would continue pumping water at a rate of over 1 million gallons a day, because water continually would be flowing back in from the aquifers into the tunnels. That water also has to be pumped out so they can continue to work down there. That's for the next 80 years of the project. In addition to that, the entire industrial site of the Brunswick site would be sloped towards the South Fork of Wolf Creek, which runs right through the middle, essentially treating that like a storm drain through that site of that site. There's a lot of other issues about water. For instance, even after the 80 years, they will need to treat this water in perpetuity because it will have some mineralized manganese and iron that, like almost any abandoned mine, has water that needs to be treated. Right now, there's no real, I don't think I've seen any funding mechanism of how they're going to do that treatment in perpetuity. Anyway, there's lots more to talk about. I'll let the next person speak, and thank you all for being here.
That's really great information, Jonathan. Thank you very much for sharing that. Yeah, next up on our agenda is the neighborhood impacts, and I'm the one who's going to cover on that. So let me just go ahead and roll right in. So the people who will be hardest hit by this project are probably the residents and the businesses immediately in the Brunswick area. to add to Jonathan's comments about water, there are more than 300 private wells in the mineral rights area and many more hundreds nearby that are at risk. Homeowners are deeply concerned about the possibility of their wells running dry or getting contaminated, and all of the cost and inconvenience that goes with that. Now, Rise Gold has claimed that they have the best experts, and other than a handful of homes that have already been identified, the project won't have any quote unquote significant impact on residents' water supplies. But here's the thing, they really can't promise that. We know from previous studies that the groundwater hydrogeology, the fractured rock hydrogeology in this area is extremely complicated, and the impacts to water quality and availability really are truly unpredictable. So we have no choice but to plan for the worst. Next, let's talk about the site itself. We're talking about putting a 122,000 square foot heavily industrial processing plant right into the middle of an idyllic rural residential community. The building itself will be so tall that the city of Grass Valley will have to buy taller fire ladders just in case, because this is taller than anything Grass Valley has. Now, Rise Gold's CEO, Ben Mossman, is really fond of talking about all the measures they're taking to contain sound levels inside the plant. But there's a lot more outside that he's not talking about. This is still going to be an industrial mining operation. There will be new truck traffic, up to 100 round trips a day, 7 days a week, 16 hours a day, constant construction noise for the first year and a half, grading and rock compacting to create engineered fill 7 days a week for 11 years. I can already hear the sound of backup beeps. There's another concern too. Rise wants to assure us that the noise and vibration from drilling and blasting won't be an issue for homeowners, and they're claiming, of course, that it won't be, put it into quotes, significant. And yet the noise and vibration that has already been a problem for local residents when Rise was doing its initial explorations. Several reports of complaints had been made, including one from a homeowner near the Brunswick site who was woken out of a sound sleep many times. And one of our county supervisors even visited another home to investigate a complaint and agreed that the level was unacceptable. But shockingly, that level of noise was then found to be within acceptable limits by the letter of the law. So that's a concern. Another area, the impact to real estate values will be substantial. CEA has consulted with real estate professionals, including appraisers, who said what you might already expect: home prices in the neighborhoods will decline. In fact, conservative estimates tell us that we're literally talking about tens of millions of dollars lost in property value alone, easily 500 to 100K for many homes. So there's really no question in anybody's mind here. The peace and quiet that brought homeowners to this beautiful area will be shattered, and the investment they've made in their homes is at risk. Okay, so that's my homeowner chat. The next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to pass it over to Barbara Ravines. Thank you for joining us. You're with the Motherlode chapter of the Sierra Club. And I know you're going to tell us a little bit about one of the two sites, the Centennial site, which is of special interest to all of us because, well, let's just call it what it is. It's a pre-Superfund site. So let's hear about that.
Yes, well, hi and welcome and greetings to you all. Thanks for coming. I'm here tonight to talk on behalf of Sierra Club, as well as I'm a CEA board member. And my topic is the Centennial M1 industrial site. That is one of the two sites purchased by Rise Gold for this project. Did you all know that the state of California has over 40,000 abandoned mines? The Centennial site ranked first as the top priority abandoned mine by the EPA because of the proximity to our communities and also because of the known contamination and physical hazards that are on the site. This Centennial site, located near downtown Grass Valley off Idaho-Maryland Road near Ferguson's Plumbing, that's the way I found the place, is a historically toxic site that is facing EPA Superfund designation. The site is 56 acres with 2/3 of the site covered with tailings from the Idaho-Maryland mine, which operated until 1956, though it was much quieter during the war and afterwards. In fact, it then closed in the mid-50s. There is an estimated 270,000 cubic yards of legacy tailings, which are toxic, which have to be removed in order to use the site for the new dumping or placing new mine waste. The Superfund's designation has been conditionally deferred for the time being because Rise Gold signed a contract with the California Department of Toxic Substance Controls to clean up the site. But it's important to understand that these are two completely separate projects at this time. During the new NOP process, CEA asked the county to include the cleanup in its EIR, truly because the Centennial site is an integral part of the mine project and needs to be remediated before the rest of the project can proceed. That's an important point. It really needs, we have to get it cleaned up, and our leadership needs to understand that. It has to be remediated. Currently, the Department of Toxic Substance Controls have just given Rise Gold a timetable of their cleanup process, which suggests that it will not be until early 2021 when reclamation work can actually begin. Cleanup costs are still unknown, but even by reasonable estimates, it could be put at over $2 million. Centennial will have its own environmental impact report with a negative deck before the actual cleanup begins. It's slated to begin this fall, that's when the process of the EIR for that particular remediation will go on, and the public will have a chance to talk about it. And then by the time they get all of that finished, then the work will not be finished, will work through the winter and then will not be finished until the spring. DTSC has just recently, I already did that. The DTSC is not looking for the overall mine project, looking at it, since it's outside their scope of work at this time. However, it was brought to their attention that a very large volume of mine waste will ultimately be brought in from the Brunswick mine site. And using as an example, the Centennial will be once it's cleaned up, will be the recipient of 1,040,000 engineered fill, reaching a height of 30 to 70 feet above the current ground level. Bear in mind that 10 feet is the standard height for a one-story building. Therefore, we face the possibility of seeing anywhere from 3 stories to 7-story buildings, that sort of bulk in that area. The zoning of the site is M1, which is light industrial, which is the county zoning. The Centennial site is in the Grass Valley sphere of influence for future planning. Grass Valley's planned sphere of influence zoning is business park, keeping with the rest of the Whispering Pines business mark and surrounding neighborhoods. Rise Gold has asked the county for a rezoning for both sites, combining M1 with ME, which will allow mineral extraction, which will allow processing, stockpiling of mine minerals, waste disposal, and the reclamation. Right now, there is no ME attached to that. That is something that the county will have to, they've asked for it, and we'll see what happens with that. Rise Gold has not requested that Centennial be annexed to Grass Valley as part of the sphere of influence. Their project would not fit very well into the land use zoning of the Whispering Pines Business Park. What I really want to say, it's very important for us to realize that these are 2 separate projects, but they really are one project. One cannot go forward without the other. Well, park could get Centennial could get cleaned up, of course, but the mine cannot go forward. It needs a place to put all those tailings, 1,040,000 of them. Thanks for listening. I think we're moving on to something else.
That was awesome, Barbara, and I really, really appreciate it. It was a really good overview. As a matter of fact, you know, one of the things I thought I might just do is just pop up for a moment a quick map. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Just to, you know, make it come home, right? The Centennial site right up there off of Idaho, Maryland mine, not far from downtown Grass Valley, not far from the hospital. And it is, yeah, it's a toxic site and it needs to be cleaned up, and we can't depend on the approval of the mine project, the larger mine project to do that. So thank you for that. What I'm going to do is, so we've talked about the project, the water, the neighborhood, the Centennial site. The next up, we're going to talk about timeline and legal. And to do that, I'm actually going to pop up a quick timeline here so that you can sort of take a look at that. And Paul, are you there and are you unmuted?
I think so.
Oh,
Yes.
yes, I can hear you.
Christy,
Excellent.
just one thing.
Awesome.
I actually took down your slide projection, so if you could put it back up. Sorry about that.
Oh, all right, sure. Oh, did people get to see the Centennial site?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So this is our next one then. All right, great. Well, in that case, I'm just going to put this up, and you know, Paul, I'm just going to let you talk while we leave this slide up there. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's fine. So
Okay.
one thing about what Barbara said is when she was talking about a million, it's million yards, million plus yards with, you know, a big dump truck is 10 yards. So imagine the dump truck traffic between the Brunswick site and the Idaho, Maryland site every day. Unbelievable amount of crushed rock movement. So let me start. I'm going to talk about the CEQA timeline. CEQA, as you probably all know, is the California Environmental Quality Act. The process started with the notice of preparation in July, and there was 30 days to allow for public input. The notice of preparation included, and you can pull up a copy of it if you pull up the county website and look for the Rise Gold project. The notice of preparation included a project description, the project approvals that would be required, a list, and the probable environmental effects. All that information was prepared by Rise Gold and presented as the part of the project application. The county has hired Rainey Planning and Management, environmental consultants, to prepare the environmental impact report. Rise Gold pays for this process. The environmental impact report will identify potential significant effects of the proposed project on the physical environment. It determines which of those effects can be reduced, avoided, or mitigated. It also identifies alternatives to the proposed project. The timing on this is to some extent is some guesswork because right now the preparation of the EIR is moving forward slowly because they're waiting for updated technical documents from Rise Gold. But once they get the technical documents they need, they will begin to work on all the different parts of the EIR, and a draft EIR will be circulated, we estimate, sometime in the spring of 2021. This is a major event for public and agency review and comment. There will likely be public hearings by the Nevada County Planning Commission. Many state agencies, the City of Grass Valley, Nevada City, and numerous community groups will have an opportunity to weigh in. We don't know at this point whether the Board of Supervisors will hold a public meeting. Rainey Planning and Management will participate in this entire process and will gather information. And from this process, they will integrate it into the final EIR document. You might hear it referred to as the FEIR. The cycle of review and revision in the draft EIR stage could take 120 days. Again, we're guessing. You can look at similar things, but this is an unusual project. We project that the EIR, the final EIR, will be circulated in the fall of 2021. Nevada County Planning Commission will hold at least one public hearing, whether to advance the proposed project or to reject it. The Board of Supervisors might hold a public hearing, we don't know. There will likely be somewhere around 60 days of review. And at the end of that process, it will get a thumbs up or thumbs down approval by the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors, or it might get sent back to Rise Gold and to Rainey Planning and Management for rewrites. The final phase, assuming it's a thumbs up and the county gives it to go ahead, the final phase would be the entitlements phase, where a list of programs and management plans will need to be approved. Among these are a mitigation monitoring and reporting requirements, use permits, reclamation plans, a rezone approval, variance approval, and performance bonding. And there may be opportunities for public input. There may be public meetings held. We really don't know at this point. The wild card in the whole thing is the issue that Barbara was talking about. How big a deal does the fact that the Centennial Cleanup Project and the Idaho Maryland Mine Project are two separate projects? And what if they aren't progressing at the same time? Or what if it's determined that the EIR for the Loma Rica project, the Idaho Maryland project, doesn't say enough about the Centennial cleanup? So that could change the whole timeline and require a different level of work. It's unlikely in the fastest scenario that this would be complete before the winter of 2021, 2022. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. That was awesome information. And I'm sure there's probably a couple of questions waiting for you on that, and we'll get to those soon. But before we do that, I'm going to go ahead and switch for a moment. The last step on our little briefing list is Lori Oberholzer. And, you know, Lori, I think one of the interesting things is I know that a lot of the legal talk depends upon where we are in that process. So I'm really looking forward to hearing you talk about that. So I'm just going to go ahead and stop sharing and just go ahead and let you focus on Lori. Go ahead, Lori.
Okay, thank you. I'm Lori Oberholzer. I'm an environmental planner and I'm with the CEA. Ralph noted that the CEA is a combination of the old Rural Quality Coalition and CLAIM. We joined together, and the RQC, Rural Quality Coalition, formed 25 years ago. So during that time, we have worked on lots and lots of land use and environmental projects in the county. They've all involved lots of public participation. Most have involved legal representation. And in most cases, that was by hiring the attorneys that we have hired for this project, Shute, Mahaley, and Weinberger. They worked on M Gold, and we think they're really worth their weight in gold. You all get to laugh. I should say that we never start these projects assuming that there will be a lawsuit. It's really a last resort. We try to find a political solution, which is what we're all involved in right now. It means we need 3 votes, as Ralph said, but it is really important to have legal representation from the beginning to the end in one of these processes. And I thought what I'd do is just really quickly take you through a project that you'll all remember that'll remind you what the whole process is how it usually works. And that was the Dark Horse project. You'll remember, big subdivision that was proposed years ago in South County. And a large neighborhood group was opposed to it. We all got organized and started a coalition. We hired Shoot Mahaley Weinberger again to represent us. We worked really hard to convince the Board of Supervisors to require an EIR and make the project better. But we lost. So we filed a lawsuit. Shoot Mahaley filed a lawsuit. At the same time, we've got enough signatures to potentially put it on the ballot just in case. And then we had with Shoot Mahaley, our lawyers, we had a settlement conference, which is always required by the courts. So that will be required in this situation also. Dramatically, at the very same time, the referendum signatures were sitting on the desk at the elections office, waiting for the results of the settlement conference. And we prevailed. The developer backed off. The Board of Supervisors rescinded their project approval, and an EIR was prepared, and we got a lot of good mitigations out of that. Now, in this case, with the Idaho Maryland mine, we want something different. We want to see a full denial of the project, but we'll be using those same legal steps that I just took you through. And so we've already started that. The first thing we did was hire Shoot Mahaley so that we would avoid any missteps at all. They've already given us lots of good advice and put in really detailed NOP comments. And the lawyer they've given us is Ellison Folk, and she's really great. So now we're just waiting for the draft environmental impact report to come out. When that happens, she'll comment on it extensively. They'll hire experts to assist, and generally they'll just make a really good, the best case they can for us under the California Environmental Quality Act. Now, if the project is approved, we will file a lawsuit. And that's why we hired the attorneys. But I think we'll have a great case. There will be lots of unavoidable impacts. And of course, we'll have Shoot Mahaley and Weinberger behind us all the way. So how do we all get involved in this legal process? And I'm here to say that we'll be there every step of the way working with the attorneys. When it is time to comment on the DEIR and all of us individually are asked to present our comments, they will go straight to the lawyers first, our lawyers first, and she will boil them all down and include them in her comments. This is a huge part of her work and a way that we can all get involved in what she's doing. She will consult with our coalition groups. She will cite them in the EIR when it's appropriate, as well as all of our many expert individuals that we have out there helping us. And she'll really put us in a good position to challenge this project. They will, Shoot Mahaley and Weinberger will be with us to the very end, advising us on the process, the final EIR, the findings, the entire, all of the legal procedures. And we will be working really closely with them. And I just have to say we couldn't be in better hands, and it's a really important part of being successful on this work that we're all working on together. That's it.
Thank you, Lori. That's great. And I know I personally had a chance to talk with Ellison as well, and I'm just so impressed at the work that you guys have done with Shoot Mahaley and the way, and just that particular lawyer, just a brilliant person. And, I'm very encouraged by all of that. So really quickly, before we switch over to questions and answers, I did want to take just a moment and ask Rebecca Hahn to give us, to just speak very, very quickly about funding and where we're at on being able to do all the things that we want to do. Rebecca, are you unmuted?
Let me unmute her. Hang on.
You're good. All right. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming tonight instead of watching the crazy. So just real quick, I'm the treasurer for CEA and the CEA Foundation. We are a nonprofit. We are a 501c3. Tax donations to the foundation are tax deductible. Talk to your, tax person about it, but they are totally tax deductible. We are a 501c3. If you are, just two things really quickly. One, if you are on Facebook, do not use the Facebook donate button. Go to our website for PayPal, and Christy will put our PayPal, I think she did. Go to our website.
I already did.
Button.
Already
Okay,
there.
Christy, you're great. That's our PayPal. Or you can write a check, and I will put the address in here after I'm done talking. So far, CEA has spent $10,000 on this project. That is for Tracy, who is our advocate, organizer, outreach organizer. She is specifically working on this project. So thank you, Tracy.
Yay.
We also provide for media. We're putting up a campaign website, and we're going to have some merch, buttons and stickers and all that kind of stuff. But the biggest things are paying for our expert professional consultants and for the legal team. So we're expecting probably next year we're looking at about another $35,000, $40,000 that we need to raise to pay for this campaign, this project. We have, like I said, I'm getting donations pretty much almost daily on PayPal. So thank you to the community for that. And there's several people who are doing monthly donations. It is great because when we get into these legal things, it is, like I said, it is expensive, but it's worthwhile because we're going to do it right. And then what was I going to say? We're writing grants. Mike Shea, who couldn't be here tonight, I hope everything's okay. He's been doing some grant writing for us. And we're hoping that some of the other large, we've already gotten some really nice donations from some of the neighbor groups around there. So we're hoping everyone can pitch in, hit the PayPal button. I'll put up our PO box, and thank you for everyone who has donated already. We are, any questions, I'll put up my email address as well, and you can always, talk to me privately about it. So thanks for everybody. And God, this is a great team. I'm so proud to be part of it. Yeah.
Thank you, Rebecca. Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I'm gonna come back to one of those points that I was making on the neighborhood impacts and the homeowner, just the homeowners alone. If you have homes in the area, just the risk that you've got on your own property value loss. I mean, these are really important. These are a lot of dollars. So, anything that you can do to help, I think really contributing to this will help you as well. So with that, I think it's finally time to shift over to the question and answer section. So I'm just gonna, pop up the Q&A slide for a moment here, let you see that. And I'm gonna sort of just walk through. So and I don't know that I have these all in exactly the order that they were come, but let me just sort of throw that out. So I'm gonna start with, one of the questions that came in is, what's the impact on climate change? And we have Don Ravines from the Nevada County Climate Action Now group here. And Don, can you unmute? Perhaps you can talk about the impact on climate change.
Thank you. Yes, I'm a member of the Nevada County Climate Action Now organization and also chair of the Nevada City 100% Renewables Committee. Nevada City, Grass Valley, and Nevada County all have passed voluntary energy action plans for reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Nevada County's goal by 2035 is to reduce electricity usage by 51%, or about 19,300 megatons of annual CO2 savings. The Idaho Maryland Mine Report estimates the mine PG&E electricity use will release about 4,122 megatons of CO2 per year, and thus it offsets 20% of the county's savings for all the work they're going to be doing. In addition, there will be an equal amount of emissions from emergency generators and vehicle on-road and off-road use for the mine, which are not covered by the energy action plans. There's a standard air quality standard air quality rule recognized by other counties of a maximum of 10,000 megatons CO2 per year. The mining report states emissions of 8,900 megatons per year, so it's barely under the maximum and should be asked to be mitigated. It should be noted that the recently approved Dorsey project projected a 20% less energy usage than the mine for 170 apartments, including residential travel to work and back. It's a question about community need, a mine or meeting housing needs. A final note, the California state goal is to be carbon neutral by 2045. So the mine approval should require mitigations and require the 80-year mine to be carbon neutral by that time also. Thank you.
Don, a lot of great information. Thank you for that. I'm going to switch to Saul Henson. I think I've got one for you, Saul, with the San Juan Ridge Taxpayers Association. Saul, people are concerned about wells. Can you say a little bit more about why wells are at risk? Are you there, Saul? No, I apologize. I'm not sure. Saul, are you there?
Can you hear me now?
Ah, there you are. Hi, Saul. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, just sorting out the phone technicalities here. Yeah, so I'm the president of the San Juan Ridge Taxpayers Association. And as many of you know, we fought the San Juan Ridge mine, which was formerly Siscon, that operated in the mid-90s. And really, water was our big issue. And so in the mid-90s, Siscon was tunneling through, they actually were operating the mine, tunneling through gravels, and they hit kind of an old earthquake fault line that had water running along it. And it acted like a zipper and just kind of moved up right up that fault line and caused about a dozen wells to go dry, including Grizzly Hill School. And Grizzly Hill School, continues to have water quality impacts to this day as a result of having to drill a new mine or a new well, excuse me. So water is a huge issue, catastrophic dewatering, but just the impacts of just the daily dewatering that's going to be happening in these mine workings, especially after they really start to expand out, is a tremendous amount of water from our groundwater aquifer, and unfortunately, it's a fractured bedrock aquifer if it's anything like out on the San Juan Ridge, and those are very challenging to delineate and to understand. But what we do know is our wells are in that fractured bedrock, and so as a result of the previous catastrophic dewatering of our aquifer, we actually had a really strong argument that the mine needed to do its due diligence for water, and the county actually ended up requiring mandatory water quantity and quality pre-measurements ahead of the EIR to get a baseline for wells before any operation started. And that actually was a major reason why it was a huge stumbling block for the San Juan Ridge mine. So I don't know, maybe if you have any follow-up questions, I know that's kind of a lot of information there.
Oh, that's a great start, Saul. I really appreciate that. And as a matter of fact, I do have a quick follow-up on, which is just another one for you. Another person asked, has anybody contacted the Sierra Streams Institute to see if they will be active on this issue? Do you know?
Yeah, so I I work at Sierra Streams Institute as a co-director for education, and not so much in the science department there. I actually tried to get the board to support us with the San Juan Ridge mine. Actually had some challenges doing that for the organization that I worked for, but it's definitely worth checking in with the board and the executive director, and I'm happy to do so in that regard. We are going through a little bit of a chaotic period as a result of our office burning down in the Jones fire.
Yeah, appreciate that. Okay, thank you. So great. So the next one, I'm going to shift over. Ralph, actually, if you could unmute, or Greg, if you could unmute Ralph. I think I'm going to go to one of my next ones. There was a question about, well, there's like when are they planning on starting the mine? And I think Paul really handled that one really well. It's a ways off, and if we're lucky, we'll push it even further off. But Ralph, what are the questions? What's the temperature of the Board of Supervisors on this mine? And, you know, how hard, it's like how should this group of people think about, you know, impacting the Board of Supervisors, and even how, would it be hard to launch a recall of supervisors who vote for the mine, right? So just kind of wondering, how do we play the Board of Supervisors card?
Well, that's a great question. I wish I knew the answer, but I can give you some sort of an overview. Before I talk about that, I just want to mention that the San Juan Ridge Taxpayers Association, Saul and Sarah Greensfelder and Rhea Williamson have been a tremendous help in this with their expertise and experience. And I just want to say personally that we really appreciate their help and hope to continue working with them. It's really great to have other groups join in and working together with them. In terms of the Board of Supervisors, I'm not a great political analyst, but I do know that what really works is people being engaged in the process and directly contacting their board supervisors. And especially if you live in Dan Miller's district, Heidi Hall's district, or actually any district, contact all the board. And especially when it comes to the draft EIR, after the draft EIR is out and we've submitted our comments and we're getting ready to have hearings, that constant contact of expressing your concerns has a lot of influence. And we'll be helping encourage people to respond when that time comes, because it really makes a difference from what I've been told. And there are probably other people in this group who have more experience in that area than I do. In terms of the temperature, I would say that we have to work pretty hard at this, but I think it's doable if we just get enough people to really raise the red flag and say, no, don't do this to our community. And what else was I supposed to say? I forget. What was the other question?
Well, you know, or launching a recall of the supervisors was a fun one if they vote for the mine.
Well, that would be
that actually might be a Lori kind of thing, right? Like if the bad things happen, right, that's when we kind of get super active, right, Lori? Greg, can you unmute Lori?
The way I look at it is that's like down the road. So like we would start with appealing the draft EIR with a legal challenge to it, and then, I mean, with the final EIR, and then we wait for a vote. And then if the vote went the wrong way, then we look at a referendum. But, you know, the threat of people losing the next election is also a great tool. So if that times out, that might be something that would be useful. And who knows, you know, we might have to go all the way and just replace the whole Board of Supervisors. But Lori, do you want to comment on that? Have you done that before?
Well, haven't been involved in a recall, but I've certainly been involved in a couple of initiatives and referendums. And there was one that, you know, it's not just the CEA involved here. The CEA has formed a coalition, so the Sierra Fund's in it, and the Sierra Club and Wolf Creek Alliance, and you know, a number of groups are part of this opposition to the mine. And we've been involved together as coalitions in the past. One of them was the big Yuba Highlands project a few years ago that was proposed in Yuba County on our county border. And so we joined with the Yuba County people. All these same groups were involved. And we we hired Shoot Mahaley and challenged the approval of that project, which would have put a population of 30,000 people on the border of Nevada County there between Smartsville and Spenceville Wildlife Preserve and Beale Air Force Base. So we were challenging the EIR, but at the same time, we went and got all of the signatures so that we qualified for a referendum on the Yuba County ballot. And it actually got onto the ballot and we won with almost 70% of the vote. And so we didn't have to follow through on the lawsuit because the project had been overturned. And now a lot of that land belongs to California Department of Fish and Game. So, I mean, there is a possibility, I think, if this project, we'll just take things one step at a time. But, if we get to the point, I think we're going to get 3 votes. I think this is it's a bad project at the wrong time. And I think the mining days are over. And I think we'll get 3 votes, but if we don't, then we just have to make some decisions. And one is whether or not to file the lawsuit or to do a lawsuit and a referendum. I think it's a possibility that everybody in this county would be opposed to this project. So I think that's a possibility, but I think we need to take it a step at a time.
Okay. Thank you for that. Awesome. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. Here's a question from Jim Steinman, and this question, actually, Lori, as long as you're still on, I'm going to point this one to you. Jim asks, I'd like to know specifically if the county board can deny the mine development because the county doesn't see any economic benefit to it, even if the developer agrees that all the environmental mitigations and posts a bond. Also, even though the EIR doesn't require any economic analysis of the future costs to the county and potential incomes or lost revenues, is it correct that there's no law that could prevent the county from requiring one to be prepared by an independent consultant? So let me see, I'll just read it all and then we can sort of summarize. Very important that the mine development will be very likely result in increased cost to the county for road maintenance, fire, police, health, and will result in the loss of property tax and impacted properties reassessed to reflect lower market value. Anyway, what this is really amounting to is sort of that whole hairy area about economic cost and whether the county is obligated or what they can do with that.
Well, even without an economic study, it's pretty obvious that there will be, heavy economic impacts as a result of this project. When it's time for the county to vote on this project, regardless of what the EIR says about economic impacts and regardless of whether or not the county has prepared an economic impact analysis on their own, they can deny the project and use as one of the findings that from the evidence that they have, from people coming to them and realtors coming to them and all of the public input that they believe that the economic impacts will be impacted, will be negative. And so they can just deny the project, just using that finding. But the EIR will talk about economic and social impacts. It, has to kind of, they're kind of limited by the impacts have to result in physical impacts. And the county may, I think some people have thought, we thought about asking the county to do an economic impact, but I think all of us can attest to what we think the economic impacts will be on us from the noise and the vibration and the reduction in property values. And I don't think you need a lot of economic studies to make it clear that those are real potential impacts.
Okay, appreciate that. All right, another one I see here is, and actually I don't know who to point this one to, so I'm just going to let my moderator or my panelists raise their hand if they want to speak to this, right? It seems like Rise and Mossman are the front men for this operation. Isn't Peter Marone and Yamana the real force behind this? Their history in Central America is really disturbing. Mossman is bragging to invest, and then another like a variant on that, Mossman's bragging to investors that they don't need state approval or federal approval. He just needs 3 votes. And it, you know, almost like he's so confident that he almost has them already. So would anybody, oh, great, Ralph, looks like you raised your hand. Greg, maybe you can unmute him. Ralph, would you like to comment on the management team and their perspective on this from Rise Gold?
Well, it's very alarming to think that people with those kind of connections and that kind of money are taking an interest in this project. And it's probably worthwhile for us to really dig into that more and try to make that clear to the public, because people want to know that this isn't just some Canadian mining company startup. This is serious business. But in terms of what we actually do to stop this project, I don't think it changes anything. It just means that the stakes may be higher. The battle might be harder. So, my view is we still have to do the same fight, but that might actually be something we can use as to motivate people more when they realize that the people who are involved in this have bad reputations and are dangerous. That's my thought.
Yeah, great. Okay, and other speakers, if anybody wants to contribute in the speaker panel, please, feel free. But let me go ahead and move on to the next. And what is the, this is for speakers.
Just a moment, Christy, let me just interject right here. Corinne Gelman, I see that you raising your hand. At some point, are we going to open this up to everyone to make questions as they see fit?
I have 4 more questions that have already been put into the chat, and then I was going to open it up to live questions. Is that all right, Greg?
And then I'll explain how that's done. So, Corinne Gelfin, hold on your question. We'll get to you.
Yeah. All right. Thanks. All right, so here's another question, and Ralph, as long as you're on the line, I'll queue you up, but if any of the other presenters want to volunteer, let me know. It's actually the question is about the risk inherent in the Centennial cleanup. There's a big question about the delay of cleaning up, like there was a big question and delay of cleaning up the Lost Lake EPA that was related to the issue of disturbing the soil, that the soil would stir up and cause air contamination. Do we know if that's going to be an issue with the Centennial cleanup?
Well, it's potentially so, because these are tailings from years and years of operations back to when they were doing crude mercury processing to remove the gold, and then later on cyanide processing, and of course we have a widely based problem with asbestos in our rock strata. So all these things are issues that could create airborne problems. We really have to wait until the Department of Toxic Substances Control publishes the remedial action plan, which is actually the plan of how they're going to do it. And I would imagine that they're going to be addressing the problem of fugitive dust. We'll just have to wait and see what the plan says, and we'll definitely be looking very closely at that.
Cool. Thank you for that. That's a good point of view. Another one, this one's actually a little bit near and dear to my heart as a homeowner not too far from the Brunswick site. There's a question of Gary Griffith is asking, what's the process and timeline to challenge the requested zoning changes for the site? So not only is there a zoning change on the Centennial site, but there's one for the Brunswick site too, where it was basically originally like a light industrial type of thing there. They have to rezone, and Lori's raising her hand for that one. And I love this. Can't Grass Valley just say no?
That's my
Greg,
question.
can you unmute Lori?
Oops, sorry. Hang on, sorry. Lori?
Uh-oh. We can't hear you yet, Lori.
Try unmuting yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Okay. Unfortunately, Grass Valley can't just say no because the project is in the unincorporated area, even though it's in with the sphere of influence of the city of Grass Valley. And so the county is processing it. But honestly, Grass Valley really should step up on this. It's within their sphere of influence. The Centennial site is in the, the very first phase of their sphere of influence. It's slated for business park development, not M1 or M2, heavy industrial type uses. And they really should be talking to the Board of Supervisors and telling them that is not what they have in their plans for the county. And indeed, it's not the county, because the county has it designated for industrial uses in their general plan, they're actually inconsistent with their own policies, which say that the county land use designations need to be consistent with the city land use designations in the city sphere of influence. So there's a real problem there. Now, what was the second part of the question?
the other part was just about timing. So if we wanted to do a legal challenge of, or requesting that zoning change, right? How do we challenge that zoning change, and when's the right time to do that?
We're right involved in that because the essence of the project is the zone change application. They have to have, so the application now, amongst other things, but at the top of the list is a zone change application. So that's what we're opposing right now.
Okay, so but lawsuits would come later when they've actually made a decision. Right?
If the project is approved, part of our lawsuit will be, on the inappropriateness of the zone change application.
Got it. Barbara, did you have a thought there too?
I'm actually just looking at a question that Linda Lanzoni had, which has to do with the fact that if it's in this Grass Valley city limits, it is not in the Grass Valley city limits. It's in their sphere of influence, which is a future planning. I mean, I would have loved it if they'd done it a year ago and brought it into the city, but it is not in the city. So.
Okay, good point. Thank you for that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and shift forward. Another one in questions. I have questions in terms of what RISE is promising in terms of job opportunities for the local community. What percentage are they hoping to hire from the local population? And if they aren't, where are they going to house the workers that they hire from out of the area? I'm sure that the potential for jobs is one of the things that the local pro-mine community, among others, will push as a reason to open the mine. Any volunteers amongst my presenters to talk to that one?
I'll take a stab at it.
Okay, Ralph. Oh,
Go
Greg,
ahead, Ralph.
go for it.
Go ahead, Ralph.
He's muted, Greg.
Oh, sorry, Ralph. Here, let me unmute you here.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sure can.
Well, Greg, you may have as good an answer as I do. That the mine states that there'll be 312 jobs created. It depends. A huge majority of those jobs are specialized technical positions. Mine work is a very specialized profession. It takes years to become, like a certified operator of equipment, and there's a lot of safety issues. So it's not something you just go and put an ad out and hire a bunch of unskilled laborers. So we've had estimates that it might be that of those 312 jobs, 242 jobs may be specialized initially and take people from out of the area. There's been other estimates that indicate a lower number than that, and Ben Mossman has indicated a lower number. So we don't really have a really strong grasp of it, but it may be, I would guess, probably half the jobs at least would have to come from out of the area. They'd have to find housing that could impact our housing. And they operate on 12-hour shifts, 24 hours a day. So, they're going to be getting off work at weird times. And so there's a lot of issues with a mine and mine work in a mining community. I'm not sure how many people in this community would be wanting to work in the mine and earn that profession. So we just don't know.
Right. Good point. Yeah, there's no question that, job opportunities is what they promote. And yet, it's really only, they're promising 312 jobs. And, when you think about that in the scope of the hundreds of homes in the area that are impacted and all of the lives of the families in the area, it's, we have to think about what's that balance.
Well,
I have a question for John. Oh,
well, I'm
go
glad
ahead.
you mentioned it, because I just wanted to add one thing, and that is quite obviously the negative impact of the mine could impact housing. It could impact construction for housing. It could impact the high-tech companies that are in Whispering Pines and in the vicinity, who have a hard time hiring people to come up and work. And the appeal is we have this beautiful mountain community. So the actual impacts could actually mean a net loss of jobs in the community.
Very true. I'm going to shift over to Jonathan on this one. Jonathan, this one's for you. One of our questioners says, Colfax Avenue is an unmitigated floodplain. And wouldn't it be irresponsible to put that much water into Wolf Creek? So can you speak to that?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an issue. Yeah. Colfax Avenue, if everybody's familiar with it, the South Fork of Wolf Creek, the little creek that we're talking about, that's going to take the brunt of the dewatering. It kind of goes underground in a culvert just right across from, the bottle store up there, or where Summertimes used to be. And then it runs underneath Colfax Avenue in a storm drain. And then it emerges again behind some chain link fences by the Grass Valley Charter School. So it's right there, and that is a very low lying area. It's a really good question. Whether obviously there will be some impact if they were dewatering at the high rate and we had a big storm at the same time. Those culverts are often pretty impacted, and I don't have real details on how bad that could get, but it's a great question. Since I've got the floor here, I also just wanted to say, as far as Wolf Creek goes, I'm really happy to see a lot of faces here of monitors with a Wolf Creek Community Alliance water quality monitors. Gary Griffith has been one of the longest time monitors, and he's right on, his site is on South Fork of Wolf Creek. And I really like seeing Delphine Griffith here. Hi, Delphine. I think she was probably 4 or 5 when she started monitoring on Wolf Creek, on South Wolf Creek.
Wow.
So we've got a good team, and we're training the young ones to come back in also. So thanks for letting me say that and recognize quite a few other monitors here. As far as the Sierra Streams go, just so you know, Wolf Creek does collaborate with Sierra Streams a lot. I know, for instance, when we collect benthic macroinvertebrates, which are the little bugs that live in the creek, I'm kind of going off the topic here, I'm sorry, but just so you know, we work collaboratively with Sierra Streams and Circle, and I'm sure that they'll be partners in some way.
Yes, they are.
As we move forward.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you, Jonathan. Good stuff. All right, and I have, this is the last one of my prepared questions, or rather the ones that we've sort of harvested from the chat pod, but for Lori, and this one's coming from Bob Brandstrom. Bob Brandstrom. Where do the proposed mitigations come in? Is that included in the EIR, or is that something separate? And can the county use inadequate mitigations as a reason to push back or deny the project?
Well, the mitigation measures come out of the draft EIR, and it'll be our job to review, and our attorney's job to review all of the mitigation measures that are proposed by the consultants to determine if we think that they're enough, there's enough mitigation provided to reduce the impacts below the significant level. So that will happen. Now, probably it would be, it's, I can't even imagine that there won't be a lot of unavoidable impacts in this project. That's just what you get out of this kind of project. And so, of course, the Board of Supervisors and the Planning Commission can refer to those unavoidable impacts and as a perfectly good reason to deny the project. But they can deny the project even if there aren't any unavoidable impacts for any reason that they think is appropriate based on all of the input that they have at the public hearings. So they have a lot of discretion here, and they can also say that they don't agree. You know, it might be that, of course, I'm sure that there will be mitigation measures that we don't think go far enough, and we will be pushing to get appropriate mitigation. And the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors can say, and we hope they will say, you know, we agree. We need to have the EIR consultants really cover all of these impacts to get to the point where they mitigate them as much as possible. Probably what's going to happen is they'll get the mitigation to a certain level, and it just will still not be below the significant level. So I hope I made that a little more clear.
Excellent, thank you. All right, so we've actually come to the end of the questions that were in the pod that we wanted to cover. So let me shift now. I'm going to just push a quick screen because we have everybody on mute. What I'd love to do is now open it up to real questions. And Greg, do you want to talk about how we're going to do that?
Sure. So
real questions, live questions.
Yeah, live questions. Thank you everybody for typing those questions. It just helps us to kind of organize and, you know, do things. But I do want to give everybody who wants to speak an opportunity. And the way we're going to do that is to use just to make it equitable, we're going to use what's called a hand raise. And if everybody would click on the participants icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen, that should bring up a whole list of all of us who are on this meeting right now. And you should see in the bottom of that window that opens up, you should see a little hand icon. And that basically says raise hand or something like that. If you can do that, then I can see who wants to speak, and I will unmute you and we'll acknowledge you and you can have the floor. Does that sound okay?
Thank you.
And Jerry, I had a question. Did your question get answered? I just wasn't, it seemed like we did, but if you don't, please go ahead and raise your hand and we'll acknowledge you again.
All right, awesome. And, you know, one other thing that I just wanted to note, I don't think my slide quite does it correctly. I think there is a button. Once Greg unmutes you, there's a button you might have to click on the screen, so look for that. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and unshare and go back to our faces. And Greg, why don't you tell me who's got their hand raised?
I see Maven has his hand up. Let me see if I can unmute you, Maven. Hang on here. Just a moment. I gotta find you. Okay. Oops.
Okay.
Maven, go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yep. You're on.
Yeah, this is Bill Clark. I'm at my wife's iPad, so that's the Maven.
Okay.
I'm a resident of Grass Valley, 20-year resident, and I've been involved in the M Gold back when it was happening, and I'm glad to know that the CEA seems to be really stepping up and moving out smartly. And what I'd like to do is I have a technical background and I've got a lot of questions and concerns that really I don't want to take up people's time here, but I've sent some to the email of CEA and I haven't heard a word. That was about a month ago. So is there an email that I could send comments to that would eventually, say, work its way up to whoever would be able to take this on? Or is there a phone number I could contact with a person that could help me get more integrated into the
CEA's activities. I'm very interested in working to derail the mine project, if you will. And some of the mitigations that I've read that don't make a bit of sense to me. And I'm wondering if should we be reading the 20 or the 36 technical reports that Rise Gold has prepared now, or should we wait? Or what kind of time frame would you suggest for people who really want to get a hold of this and move out smartly?
Oh,
Thanks.
so I can try to respond to that. First of all, thank you. We've gotten so many emails that I know a lot of people have gotten left by the wayside, and so I want to apologize for that. But if you send an email to Mine Concerns, MineConcerns, Mine Concerns, all one word, at ceanc.org, with your question, we will put you into contact with the right people. And on the other subject of wanting to help and on the research, we are doing research now. You mentioned that the documents is a massive amount of documentation, so we are working through it. So you or anyone else has particular expertise in an area and want to get involved in helping review the documents, then we can communicate and figure out how that might work.
Okay, I appreciate that. I one question that I've been asking organizations and people that I think should have knowledge, but no one's responded. What would it take for the county to institute a severance tax or a mine extraction tax so that we could get some economic benefit if things don't work out for us of the huge amount of dollars per day that's going to result from all the gold that's going to be mined, and all the county gets is whatever sales tax and property tax. Thanks.
Thanks, Bob.
I think that's a great idea. I don't know how to go about doing that. Maybe somebody else does.
I don't know. I'm not sure how that works.
It would be a political process, obviously. So we can ask for it. I know there are limits on taxing gold. There's certain rules about it.
Greg, are you muting people?
I am if they need it.
Because this and Corinne Gelfin has been raising his hand for about a half an hour. I
yes,
think.
and I'll unmute. This is Jerry who wanted to speak. Let me see if I can.
You can mute me back. Great.
Okay, let me see.
He might need.
Hi, I'm Jerry Grant, and I'm Corinne's husband.
Hi.
I was very passionately involved in the M-Gold situation, and I made several impassioned pleas, during that period, during that period when we were all speaking, and I presented it as a very, very bad business thing, especially with the advent of the tile they were going to make. I presented something about that. So I never really understood what was the straw that broke the camel's back to really stop M-Gold in that situation. And maybe Ralph can clear that up for me, because I'm still want to be very much involved in any way I can, and I am. And I've written letters to everybody I think in the world who might read them, and wrote letters to all of the people in our Grass Valley group. I'm sorry, our Lost Lake group. So what was the straw that broke the camel's back the last time?
So it's hard to say which straw in particular did it, but we know that they had to redo their draft EIR, and that was going to be another $750,000. And some of the reasons were that they hadn't done studies on the impacts and the riparian habitat, and there was a lot of issues with the air quality reports and so forth. So, you know, that didn't really kill the project, but it meant that they had to get more funding, and they were thinly funded. They had over $40 million in debt. They had no income. And so they were going back to investors and trying to get funding. And we would actually write letters to their investors that, you know, when they go to an investment firm, and we write a letter to them and explain all the issues that we found that we're going to use to stop them. And darn, a lot of their investors just pulled back. And so I think what happened was nobody really wanted to fund them because it was just too risky. The whole tile factory was a risky venture. There wasn't really a good market for the tile.
Right.
And there were a lot of environmental impacts, and they were undercapitalized. And we basically ran out the clock on them.
Yeah. Am I still on the call? Can we still be heard?
Yeah. Go ahead, Jerry.
Yeah. Because I remember in one of my presentations where I presented as a really miserable business deal, because MGold said that they plan to capture 10% of the world market, and I presented it as the fact that if they captured 1/10 of 1% of the world market, they'd be doing fantastically well for that ugly gray tile that they had. Anyway, so my question is, can we write letters to investors again? Can we find out who the investors are and just deluge them with letters?
Well,
just a direct situation.
Yeah, I don't see why not. But even probably more effectively is write public letters that detail, you know, the issues that the mine's creating in the community. You get them published in the union or on blogs or whatever, because most of these big investors, they kind of pay attention to what the progress of the project is. So
right.
Delphine,
is good.
Delphine has her hand up. Go ahead, Delphine.
Hi, thanks for all of this amazing information. I'm so excited. I have, in terms of like, hopefully this mine project will be stopped, because I know we're doing really good work and I believe that it can happen. But since it has, you know, like with the previous mine company trying to open the mine and this one, should we try and like, obviously like look more long-term and try and get both the land, I mean, like, I guess the mine owns the land itself or the mineral rights, but should we try and find a way to like take that land out of any potential further investment for mine companies to like come back again and be like, this is a great idea? So I think that's obviously like long-term and potentially hard, but I think it is something to think about potentially.
Lori, go ahead. Hang on, let me unmute you here.
He's muted.
I know, I'm working it.
Well, I don't have an answer, but I think that's a great idea. We need a subcommittee on that issue. I know that Ralph has had an idea for a long time that certainly in the city of Grass Valley, we need an ordinance that says no mining in the city limits. And I don't think that would break state law. And I think maybe we could do something like that within the sphere of influence, because that's considered an urban area, even though it's in the county. And I think that there's probably a lot of, you know, there's a lot of things we could do looking towards the future. As far as buying up the mineral rights, I don't know. You know, you should make no little plans. It's pretty hard to do, but maybe we can do it.
Yeah, it's a neat idea. Anybody else have their anything that they would like to share or ask? I don't see anybody's hands up, but let me scan really quick. Gary, let me go ahead, Gary.
Hi, everybody. I live in the Grandview Terrace, or I prefer to call it just Gold Hill Drive area. that is above the South Fork. And so I'm pretty close. And every neighbor I've talked to about this sees the obvious negatives in this. I'm just wondering what I can do, what's already being done, what we should be doing to really organize neighborhoods, individual people who are really close. Jerry, you mentioned Lost
Lake.
Lost Lake, and so that there's a number of these areas is part of the strategy. You know, carefully identifying these neighborhoods and making sure that we're actively, whatever the term might be, maybe not canvassing in this political season, but
Why not?
but
I'm willing to do it all along Greenhorn.
yeah. So you know, it's a question of strategy. What's a good strategy, and how we can do it, and whether it's being done, and who's doing it. But I think a coordinated effort would be great. We have a little window here before the DEIR comes out. I would like to see that we use some of it to really organize neighborhoods so they're, you know, ready.
Lori, Christy, you guys want to respond to that?
Oh, we have we have Tracy. We should give this to Tracy. We've hired Tracy to be our outreach coordinator, and we have all kinds of plans for public participation. But on the neighborhood thing, we have, you know, Ralph and I and other people, we're certainly willing to, if you put together a little neighborhood meeting outside, we'll come and talk to you neighborhood by neighborhood. But Tracy, tell us what's going on.
You're muted. We need to unmute her, Greg.
No,
I got it.
There we go.
I got it. Yes, people are saying the same thing as you, Gary. And because of that, actually someone went out in Nevada City and I helped her put some materials together to do sort of the test canvas. So there are a lot of people who want to start hitting the neighborhoods and canvassing, which we can do. Another thing we wanted to do was start doing Zoom presentations like this. So it could be like your house Zoom party, where you invite your neighbors and a few of us will get on and then help, you know, do all the background, answer very specific questions, maybe the area, whatever the case may be. That might be a really good way to start, depending upon what people's interests are. There are definitely people we've just heard that are like, just give me a fact sheet and I want to start knocking on doors. And so we'll help you do that too.
Okay.
So those are the two neighborhood things. And we also want to start organizing businesses. So there are people who are now going to start knocking on business doors in a group. And so if you want to do any of those things, email me and I will connect you. Some of these people don't even want to go to a meeting. They just want to go knock on doors to businesses. So we'll connect everyone.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah.
Do you have a comment towards this idea?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna, you know, just add to that. I really, you know, I feel like it's important to understand that we're kind of in a ramp up mode right now. And this is literally the beginning. We've got lots and lots of people raising our hands, and Tracy's doing an amazing job. There's another group that we work with called Empower Nevada County that's doing organizing, and we're working with them, and that's actually one of the groups that Tracy equipped with talking points and things like that. So what I would definitely say, I have a slide at the end where we have some links and things for you, but you know, get on to the newsletter, get signed up with us, because as we get more and more organized and there's more, you know, big events and things like that that you can be a part of, we want to be able to tell you about that. So please, you know, sign up for the newsletter so we can keep you up to date.
We're at 7:38 right now, and I think we've gone over a little bit. How is everybody feeling? Do we want to close things up, or?
I see Don with a raised hand and Bill with a raised hand.
So let's take a couple more questions. Make them very.
You know what?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, Greg. You know, one of the things, because I want to be respectful of time, one of the things I might recommend is let me just do a quick wrap up and show the final slide. So for those that really feel like they have to leave, let me just show that. And then I know we as a group are here and going to stay until the last question is answered. So if you want to stay with questions, do it. Let's do that. Let me just do a quick, and I was just going to flash this one last slide at you, which is kind of like the take action slide, right? Absolutely, the supervisors are the decision makers, so we want you to write letters to your supervisors. We absolutely would like to see you, get a sign or join a team doing business or neighborhood outreach. There is a Facebook group that was actually started by one of our volunteers, Jude Bischoff, called the Stop the Idaho Maryland Mine. If you're a Facebooker, it's a great place to go. Actually, Bill, were talking about, I think it was Bill, maybe it was somebody else that was talking about who should you be reaching out to? The union, Ubinet, even Rise Gold investors. And I will, and just our main website here, cea.nc.org, and the main way to contact us by email, Mine Concerns, and I'll reiterate with Ralph, we got a little buried there for a while, but we're trying to stay on top of that, and that is the best way to reach out to us. But sign up for the newsletter, please donate if you can, and volunteer. Those are the things that we'd really love to get your help with. So with that, I'm going to just kind of do the formal close, but let's keep moving on questions after this. Okay? So for those of you that do have to leave, I'm sorry, what?
Can I add one tiny thing to the ask list? Is we're asking
Oh,
people
absolutely, Tracy.
Yeah,
Go
I should
ahead.
have put it on that slide. I created that slide. We're asking people to make comments to the Board of Supervisors, and they meet every other week. So if you're interested in commenting to the Board of Supervisors, write in the chat, or I just put my email up there, look for it, and I can help you prepare your comments. Thanks.
Awesome. All right. Okay, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and do the official close, but let's keep doing questions for as long as anybody wants to continue. And I think I saw some hands. Bill, you had a hand up.
Yeah, my iPad just dropped off. The only question I have is I missed Rebecca's PO box number for sending donations.
Up again.
Anybody have a PO
okay.
box number?
I'm doing it right now.
Ralph?
You want us to put it in the chat? Yeah, we'll get that in the chat for you.
Thanks. Okay, that's it.
Hang on, let me acknowledge Linda and Lori. Let me do Linda first, then I'll do Lori.
She's muted.
I know, I'm trying to unmute her right now. Okay, Linda.
Hi. Okay. There were just a couple of email addresses or whatever that Tracy put up one. Is it Tracy at cea-nc.org?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And then Mine Concern at cea.org.
It's Mine Concerns. With an S.
Okay.
Yeah, let me put it in again properly. It's Mine Concerns at CEA-NC. So there's a couple, everybody used the very last one that just got sent.
Okay, they flash up very quickly and we don't get to write them down that fast. So they're gone before I know.
You can scroll up and down, Linda. That chat pod has a little bar at the far right side, and so you can scroll back if you want to.
Oh, okay, great. All right. Thank you. I see it now. Thank you very much. This was great, by the way. I really appreciate all of you. I live like 9/10 of a mile off the intersection of Greenhorn and Brunswick. So this is kind of scary for me too. I've been here 26 years and it's kind of ticking me off that we have to do this.
Again. Lori, go ahead.
Yeah, well, this has got the whole talk about the campaign that we're starting off here has got me really excited. So it's almost time for us to have signs. So I'm just going to put in $250 if anybody wants to add to the fund. It's cheaper by the dozen to buy the signs. As soon as we have a slogan, We need to buy our yard signs. The neighborhood associations are great with putting up the yard signs. And it's been effective in a lot of our campaigns in the past, so.
Cool.
I'm putting in $250 for signs, yard signs.
Awesome.
Anybody else?
Any
want
other questions?
comment or questions? Dawn, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I see that Jim has left the meeting, but he did raise the question about air quality, and Pam was never on the call. But I think we want to make sure that everybody we do know that air quality is a major, major issue of this whole project. And I don't think we've mentioned it all tonight. So we are going to be following up on the various air quality issues.
Cool.
Good call out, Don.
Anyone else before we?
I'm going to leave. Thank you all. I'm going to be leaving. Thank you very much.
Good night.
I think it's time for all of us too.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone for coming.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Really
Thank you.
appreciate your time this
Thanks,
evening.
everyone. Now we can go find out what happened at
Thank
the
you.
debate.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, so I'm going to shut down the meeting.
Okay.
All right.